Hi, I'm Jonathan Long. Thank you for joining us in another Bible study. In our Wednesday nights, we've been talking about what it means to be a disciple, and we've been going through a little book study together. A book was written by Mike Breen and Steve Cochran called Building a Discipling Culture. And while we don't take every single word that they say as the gospel truth, it's been a great resource to us as we have reflected on how we can build one another up, how we can be more evangelistic in building disciples, how we can work within the body to make one another more like Jesus Christ. And so we got to the point where we're talking about what we should do, the process that we take in multiplying disciples. And a lot of this is inward focused for us as we look at the pattern that Jesus went through as he made his disciples and prepared his disciples to make more disciples. And we looked at Jesus' teaching when he first called his disciples. He was acting in a directing role. He told them in Matthew chapter 4 and verse 19, "Come and follow me, and I will make you fishers of men." And that's exactly what ended up happening. His disciples dropped their nets, and they followed him. And he went and called his other disciples in a similar fashion. And he told them, "I want you to come to follow me. Come and watch what I do, and I'm eventually going to make you fishers of men." And so they did that. And then a little bit later on in the ministry, in Matthew chapter 8, Jesus' disciples get in a boat with him, and a storm picks up. And it starts blowing like crazy. And his disciples eventually have to call him and wake him up, and he rebukes the sea, and it calms down. And Jesus has to coach them a little bit. He was trying to show them what to do. And then when they got overwhelmed, they come to him for help. And he talks to them a little bit, and he calms the sea, and he shows them it's going to be okay, but he's still acting in their lives. And then we move on a little bit further to Matthew chapter 14. Jesus is feeding the multitudes of people, and Jesus sends his disciples out. He tells them, go and collect food to feed them. And then after they collect the food, they recognize that they're not sure what to do at this point, that they're not going to be able to feed. And then Jesus helps them, and he multiplies that fish and that bread enough to feed the multitudes that were there. And then finally we get to the end of Jesus' time with his disciples in Matthew chapter 28. We have what's called the Great Commission. He tells them to go into all the world and make disciples. And he's not going to be there anymore. They're going to have to do it all on their own. And they get to this point where they are responsible for all the action, and the teacher is only going to watch them work. And we see in this, what these authors bring out, is that Jesus is scaffolding these disciples and building them up into a higher level of competency and higher confidence, and that Jesus is taking a lesser role. The authors describe this excuse me. The authors describe this in four statements. They say, at first, when Jesus is directing them, and he calls his disciples and tells them to become, and he will make them fishers of men, he's saying, I am going to do, and you are going to watch. And then when he gets to Matthew chapter 8, whenever he is calming the sea, he is still doing, he says, look, I'm still showing you what to do, and you're going to help a little bit. You're going to watch, and you're going to have a little bit of input, but I'm still going to be showing you what to do. And then as they gain experiences, as they gain competence, as they gain a little bit of confidence, Jesus sends them, he says, you're going to do. That's when he sends them out to collect the baskets. And then I'll help you whenever you stumble. And then eventually, in the full culmination of what they're doing, in Matthew chapter 28, Jesus sends them out. He says, you go and make disciples. You do. I'm going to watch. And so we see a pattern that when we're going to help one another learn a new skill, and we're going to help build one another up in Christ, we're going to have to help one another and increase the load on those that we're discipling. If I'm teaching you a new skill, at first, you're not going to know anything. And so I'm going to have to teach you, I'm just going to show you what I'm doing. And then I'm going to be doing things, and I'm going to maybe ask on you to chime in or pitch in and help a little bit so that you can start gaining a little bit of experience. And then as you become more experienced, I'm eventually going to put some burden on you. I'm going to ask you to do what's a little bit uncomfortable to you. I'm going to ask you to do something, and I'm going to be right there with you. I'm going to be there to provide support and to provide feedback, but I'm going to help you with that. And then eventually we're going to get you to the point to where you know what you're doing, you have the skills, you have the experience, and I'm going to be able to turn you loose with a new skill set, such that you're going to be able to not only do it by yourself, but you're going to be able to train somebody else to do the same things that you learned. And that's the model that we see Christ participating in with his disciples, and it's the model that you and I can participate in with one another. And it's just really, really important that we learn how to build one another up in this way, how we learn to humbly teach a skill. There's this mindset that often happens whenever we start teaching somebody something new, that we want to force them at every turn. We want to grab hold of their shoulders and we want to turn them only in the directions we want them to go, and almost sit there with a staff and whip it down in correction anytime they're doing something. We need to have humility and understand that this discipleship style is about multiplication. It's not about control. It's not about yielding authority, but it's about yielding my will to help someone become more like Christ. And to recognize and understand that there's going to be situations of doubt, and there's going to be situations of hesitancy, and there's going to be times when I need to be a real encourager, and there are times that I need to pull myself back and allow the ones that I'm discipling to grow in. And we discuss this at a little bit more length in our Bible study here at Ruston, and we get into some of that. But one of the things that's got to be impacted on you is to know this: you can't become more like Christ if you're not found in him. If you're not taking those first steps to be like Christ. One of the things that he told his disciples in Matthew chapter 28, he says, "Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Spirit, teaching them to observe all things whatsoever I've commanded you, and lo, I'm with you always, even to the end of this age." And what he said to them is, in order to make disciples, you give them a new identity by baptizing them into me. We dunk them in water not to give them a bath, but as an answer of their conscience, as what Peter says in 1 Peter chapter 3 and verse 21. We need to take the first steps in following Christ. So many times we want to operate on the peripheral things that exist within our lives. We want to get our money in line with what Christ wants our money. We want to get our speech in line with how Christ wants our speech. What about your identity? Have you dealt with the sin problem in your life? Have you washed away the sins in baptism? That's what Christ would tell you to start doing. That's what he told his disciples and his apostles to start at, is in doing that. I would encourage you, if you have questions about what that means, please reach out to us. I'd love to talk to you about what biblical salvation looks like and what biblical baptism looks like and its implications in your life. It's the moment that we become found in Christ. I believe that's what the Bible teaches. We really appreciate you being with us and hearing what it is that we've got going on. You know, listening to us on YouTube is great. We'd much rather have you in person. We'd much rather enjoy your fellowship as we grow together to be what Christ wants us to be. We'd love to have you grow with us as well. If you like our video, please like, subscribe, give us a thumbs up. We'd really appreciate it. Share it, comment if you've got any questions. We'd love to interact with you. Thank you so much.